Like to call to order the Parks and Public Works Committee regular meeting of October 22nd, 2024. Would the deputy clerk, please call the roll?
Baldwin.
Here.
Hoffman.
Here.
Kimball.
Here.
Roach.
Here.
And Teal.
Here. Member Cherick is off today. He's ill. Can I get an approval of the agenda, please? A motion to approve the agenda.
I move that we approve the agenda for October 22nd, 2024.
Yep, and I will second it.
All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Okay, on to approval of minutes from September 24th, 2024. Can I get a motion to approve those minutes?
I would make one edit to it if we can.
Oh.
So in this section that was Saugatuck Harbor Natural Area, there is a piece that says that we're working on conservation easement, and I think that just got cut and pasted from the airport property. So if we can have that taken out, because that's already,
Yeah.
we already have a
So-
conservation easement for that, so I don't want any confusion. over
Make
that.
a motion to approve the minutes with. Yeah,
Okay, I would make a
exception, please.
motion to approve the minutes from September 24th with the change in the section for the Saugatuck Harbor Natural Area to remove the statement about the conservation easement since it already exists.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Motion carries. Okay, we are now in the first public comment section of our meeting. If there's anyone who'd like to comment, whether we have no one in the room, anyone online care to comment? Okay, seeing none, move on to review and discussion. Item 6A, DPW updates. Today we have Adam in, as Superintendent Herbert is taking some PTO, so he will walk us through some of the updates.
All right, so we've been doing some street sweeping since it's fall now, so we're running a street sweeper through town and picking up all the leaves. It's been increased from 2 days a week to 5 days per week. It it keeps the town cleaner, but it also ensures that storm drains are free of obstructions and flowing properly. Out at Oval Beach, Public Works is slowly uninstalling some of the more seasonal items at Oval Beach. These items include the boardwalk, trash barrels, seasonal signage, speed bumps, and picnic tables. We've started installing the erosion controlling fence, and the restrooms will remain open until temperatures start dipping into the 30s at night. We have a new hire. His name is Scott Morrow. He filled the equipment operator maintenance worker position. He joins our team with many years of maintenance experience from working at Perigo. He brings a ton of enthusiasm about pouring his efforts back into the community that he loves. Scott's first day was September 30th. At Mount Baldhead, the parking lot at Baldhead was developing some sizable potholes. We graded the lot and added more gravel. Tree work has been happening around town. We had 2 dead trees we took down. One was located at City Hall here at 102 Butler Street. The other was located at 149 Lucy Street. Both trees will be replaced. Crews have also been trimming trees in the road right of way to improve sight distances and maintaining visibility of street signs. We had some vandalism Friday, September 27th at the restrooms at Village Square and Wicks Park. They were graffitied along with a trash can at Willow Park. Significant time was spent removing the graffiti, and some of it had to be painted over. Police assisted by making a report of the incident. Fall decorations are starting to go up. They've been installed throughout the city. Public Works assisted with placing the decorations at key locations around town. Gregory kept tradition alive by collecting donations, organizing volunteers, and setting up the decorations. A big thank you to Gregory for his work with this. We had a special event that we helped set up, this homecoming parade that we helped out with. We were also doing concrete work around town. We're installing the bench pads at Village Square and we're doing some curb work at 1050 Holland Street. We are also installing a concrete pad at Mount Baldhead for the new bike rack that'll be going up there. We're also beginning to winterize restrooms and irrigation. That'll be starting to happen. We'll be blowing out all the sprinklers and winterizing the bathrooms, getting ready for the freezing temperatures. And then, as you know, heavy brush and leaf collection is coming up, so we'll be out in the streets doing that stuff. And also road resurfacing work this week, so spots around by Griffith Street and Francis Street from Holland to Elizabeth will be getting milled up, and that stuff will be getting taken care of this week. And that's all I have.
It's great. I'm especially excited about the pads being poured for the park benches. I know
I think everybody's
it's been a long time coming. Yeah, we're really happy and grateful for that. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? No? Okay, well, thank you very much for subbing for Scott. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to item 6B, Michigan Green Communities. This is something that's been brought forth by Member Roach. And our city manager has provided us with some information on it. Did you want to get started on it? Or do you want me to have Kelly talk to it?
Pulled up, right?
Yeah, can you put it?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, if Kelly wants to kick it off and I can go from there. May to put you on the spot, but.
Yeah, no, that's
yeah.
okay. Well, first of all, thanks for putting this together. This is fantastic. So I hope everybody had a chance to look at this. So just as a reminder, Michigan Green Communities is part of the Michigan, I'm trying to think of the overarching program, but anyway, there has been a lot of dollars moved over for sustainability practices for small municipalities. The Michigan Green Communities is a program that we can access to kind of help us along the way to create sort of a values-driven sustainability project. And many other small communities up and down the Lake Shore have already adopted this, including Grand Haven, Fenville, and Saugatuck Township. And essentially, if you guys have gone online to look at it, it's pretty simplistic. It's an Excel spreadsheet, gives all different, I think it's 7 different categories, and we can choose which ones we would like to tackle first. And then based on it, essentially, we would take a look from now until January 1st. It opens January 1st through I think May 1st is the deadline to submit. And essentially it goes gold, silver, bronze. And the reason why people are doing it is it basically kind of gives you a framework to be moving goals forward as a community. It puts your values out there to community in terms of that we do want to do things more sustainably. But then the other piece of it is that since there's dollars from the state is that we can start to get consultants in as we reach these different status levels to come in and work on projects that we don't necessarily have an expertise or bandwidth in. So that is the thing that has really caught my attention with it. And I've talked with other communities that have done it and they said it's pretty simplistic. You just have to put some time against it. And so I brought it forth to you guys when I did the presentation that I would like to take this on as a PPW committee and then sort of we do the heavy lifting to say, okay, these are the things we want to do. Ryan's already done a lot of the heavy lifting to identify the things that potentially would be the best low hanging fruit. We can sort of do the work behind it and then work with our staff. So it's not overburdening them to kind of get the information that we need to move it forward. So that's all I have on that.
If I might chime in on that, I've been talking to Ryan and the mayor about this and, the feasibility of it. One of the things that we think might be ideal is to bring it to council in our strategic planning session to talk about, that's where whatever council we have in December is going to set the priorities for the community and then that session. And because the big concern about this is how much staff time is it versus how much can you really do as a PPW member? I mean, I'd be all about taking some of this on, but when you look at some of the things, it does look like data and mining and that would have to be done at a staff level. So then it becomes a thing that council has to decide, like how much of an effort do you want staff to put into something like this? And so I think at this point, I would suggest that like we talk about it and and then we can also at some point vote to bring it to council as a suggestion to put on the sustainability or on the strategic planning. Does that make sense, Ryan? Did I cover all that?
Yeah, and I appreciate committee member Roche giving me credit for this document. So I didn't actually put this document together. So
Great.
the migrant communities did though. So this was their guide as far as getting started and their suggestions as far as like what might be kind of the, initial action steps that folks could easily kind of focus in on and kind of at least get in at the, the bronze level. I did reach out to the township manager to kind of talk with him about, what it looked like in their community as far as getting started and, staff time and commitment and that sort of thing. And he didn't feel like it was a huge, amount of staff time that at least initially getting started and doing that initial evaluation. My thing with it, I think there's, a lot of great action items here and a lot of, good things that we could definitely work towards, but ultimately, I think a lot of them are kind of greater like policy decisions that really, lies with the council to kind of provide some direction on it. Is this something that you want to prioritize sustainability overall and using this kind of framework and these particular action items? And so I want to make sure that our city council is at least providing that support and direction for staff to be spending time on sustainability and this as a priority before we kind of get too far down the road. I think it's important to have their direction on that. But I think it's timely in that, obviously we have an election next month, but whoever the council is, we're going to be doing some strategic planning like Chair Baldwin indicated, and we'll be able to kind of set those priorities for the next year, and we'll have that clear direction from them on what they want staff and our committees to kind of take up.
Would it be appropriate as far as your council's strategic planning to have a guest speaker come in from Michigan Green Communities to do presentation on this so that you're getting the full information and they can answer those types of questions as far as a municipality of our size and how much time and dollars are they putting towards this to even make it really of value?
I don't see why that would necessarily be a problem at all. I mean, as long as it's something that council at that time would be interested in hearing about and taking how much time is that going to take out of their planning process? You know what I mean? So I
I'd say
think that,
10-15
yeah.
minutes and it could be something on a Zoom.
yeah, and I think I think it sounds like a great idea, actually. And
Could that even just be part of like a workshop, that they would do it
that's what
ahead
the
of time?
strategic planning is. It's a full day that council does once a year and
Okay.
and it's just a workshop about like what are the priorities for the year and kind of trying to line up your budget versus what your priorities are, how you think staff time should be spent, what you're going to be looking into for the year, and it just kind of sets broad priorities for the council for the coming year. But it is an open meeting and yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and wherever, I mean, it's ultimately, it would be up to, the mayor to kind of decide the agenda. I mean, even if, somebody could come in as a guest speaker during a priority or strategic planning session, or, I mean, just, they could be invited to be a guest speaker at any particular meeting, whether it be a workshop or a regular council meeting. So, but assuming, the mayor's fine with this being added as an agenda item, I'm sure that would be helpful for them to ask some questions and have some back and forth dialogue, certainly.
So the only downside to this is it takes staff time away from potential other priorities. Is that, I mean, it seems like a no-brainer, to me,
Well,
like,
yeah,
but that's.
I am curious to know, like, I mean, I know that he talked to the township or the township also doesn't have a DPW. So I don't know how much the township, I mean, I'd be curious to know, like, when I start looking at some of these things, I'm like, to me, it looks like DPW time. And so I appreciate the fact that the township's doing it and they don't feel like that there's a ton of staff time. But I don't necessarily know that it's going to be an apples to apples comparison, given that we do have a DPW staff and, that are already small for the size of our community and what we expected them. It's already pretty stretched. So I just want to have a full understanding of like, about how much time are we in here? Like, and again, I appreciate the fact that as PPW members that we'd be willing to work at it. I don't know how much of that we can actually do when it's,
Sure.
make sure there's DEI training for your, that's not the purview of PPW or even
Right.
council to, to have that kind of stuff. So I just want to make sure that we're, not fire aim and, just get things, get a good foundation, see if there's an appetite for it. I mean, I think that we have broad support for sustainability efforts on council now. Hopefully with whatever we have for our council afterwards, it'll remain the same.
Yep.
So I don't think that this would be a huge ask to present, but we'll have to wait and see what that looks like.
Yeah, well put. And that was actually, Daniel and I did discuss that. There were a lot of items to them that just weren't applicable because they don't have certain departments and functions. And so that's a very good point. Yep.
All right. I guess we'll move on then to item 6C, which I'm excited about because I know we have updates on here of the Saugatuck Harbor Natural Area.
Yeah, so we talked for, a number of meetings that there's, kind of a master plan for the Saugatuck Harbor Natural Area that needs to be updated in order to access, some endowment, dollars that are, being held at the Holland Zealand, Community Foundation. And I think we discussed at your last meeting that, we kind of have a path forward to update that plan, through the city council. But that the Land Conservancy was working on kind of some updated evaluation of the land and inventory. And I think there was a suggestion at the last meeting as well about kind of taking a look at trails and what the status of those are. And so the Land Conservancy has come through in a really big way and provided a really, I think, thorough evaluation of the property and where we're at and some good recommendations going forward. And so a copy of that report is in your packet. From here, essentially, I think, it'll be, essentially just kind of updating that master plan with some of their recommendations and information that they provided. And then reviewing that with the city council and the Land Conservancy, just make sure everybody's on the same page as far as language and the plan going forward, and then go from there on implementation, right?
Yeah. I know first of all, I think that Land Conservancy of West Michigan has been, I mean, just beyond professional to work with, and I'm really happy to be partnering with them and getting us on the right path as far as figuring out how we're gonna access these funds, and that's been great. Member Roach pointed out, and I agree, and the picture of natural communities at the harbor, it's hard to tell what the interdunal wetland is. I'm sorry, it's on page 14 of 27. I apologize, Sarah.
No, that's.
So if you look the second on the key, the interdunal wetland, I can't identify on here.
I think it's this. I think the colors are just off.
You think it's what? I'm sorry.
Like this green right
I
here.
think that's the
That's
northern
the
forest.
Forest.
Oh, it is.
I think it's the one after it, right?
Okay, I thought.
Or is the forest the darker
I
green?
think the forest, I thought the forest was the.
Oh.
Okay.
Well, that actually makes
Okay,
more
that,
sense.
it does make more sense.
Because that
Yep.
does look like, you know what you're
Yeah.
looking at when you go there. It does seem like that was,
Yep.
those would be the, okay.
Yeah, good call.
All right, yeah, good call. That's exactly what that is. Okay,
Yeah, our screen colors are just off.
all right. I feel better now because I was like, that, and that actually makes sense given what, that when you look over at that area from the crow's nest or whatever,
Yeah.
it does look like that. So like, okay, all right, good. Glad we got that sorted. Okay. Any other questions for Ryan on the management recommendations from Land Conservancy?
So I did have a question on this. So, I know the thing that we've gone back and forth about is the ordinance and the need or not needing, having the board that was, I think, put into place in 2010. So I think that the Land Conservancy did a wonderful job with this. I mean, I feel really comfortable with this and the fact that they, made comments on both the, official trails and unofficial trails, I think is actually
Yeah.
super important. I think that's a really good jumping off point for us. But having read the management plan multiple times and now having read this, personally, I feel like there's a simplicity to this that I don't know that we need a management board to do this. So, I apologize. I can't really remember where we landed with that. I know we were digging into
Mhm.
prior records with that and trying to decide, do we do away with the ordinance? Do we move forward with a management board? I think it would be a nice thing if all of the different parties that are listed in the management plan are kept aware of what's going on. I mean, I think that's a good thing, but especially with what's going on with invasive species that in the 10 years that we have not used the funds to manage it, it hasn't gotten out of control yet, that I feel like we are in a place that we can catch this. And then obviously the signage is a huge thing. So I'm just curious kind of if we can make a decision on that and move on so that we don't continue to kind of go back to that or where we are.
Well, that along those lines is exactly, part of the update that will be in the update to the master plan that currently refers to having a board. Essentially, we plan on in this update, making a change to kind of clarify that board overall will be the city council really going forward. So there won't be like a separate board necessarily responsible for reviewing just this park. And the Land Conservancy's, been involved in those discussions and that change, knowing that they still will be a partner and involved in, going forward. So I think we're moving in the direction that you're suggesting. That just needs to be formalized, I guess, in an updated plan.
Mhm.
But we've looked at all the previous, documents and resolutions that the council has passed, and, it's a little, there's just kind of some unclear at what point things dropped off and why they did, but we think that the city council can update the plan, and that the plan can be updated to clarify that there's not going to be a separate advisory board with separate membership that the plan kind of outlined. And that ultimately, the city council is kind of stewards of all of our city land, but particularly this land, will kind of have the say as far as, making sure that it's maintained going forward, ultimate say, but
Will the Land Conservancy have an ongoing role? then?
yes.
To really be the ones that,
Hold the funds, yeah.
right, but would, I mean.
Well, the land conservancy isn't
who's-
necessarily
who's gonna
holding the
be, like,
funds.
I want to make sure it doesn't get lost again, you know what I mean? That,
There's continuity to it.
right,
My
right,
understanding is that the way that it works, and please, Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong, is that they would make recommendations, like you said, that they have an inventory of all the invasives and the
Right.
natives. And so then I think that they would come forth and say, hey, we'd be like, okay, so this year we've got $30,000 to spend. And then they would come at, make some recommendations.
so they would continue to be involved.
Oh, yeah.
Right, and they would be the ones that are coming to us, or to the council saying, yeah,
They are a partner for the conservation easement. So
Right.
They're the ones that hold that.
okay, they never did before, right? I mean, this whole gap,
Correct.
Well, I think also the gap too is really, that's more on us, is that we didn't pursue, keeping up our, I mean, I think obviously communication can be a two-way thing, but we continued to receive notification that, hey, this exists, whatever, right? But then there was no, is the board in compliance? So what this has been is just a big exercise to get us back into compliance with the terms of what we need to be doing to access the funds that are due to the city. And then once we have those funds, we can give guidance as to how that should be. But I mean, give guidance. I mean, I think that they're going to know a lot more than we're going to know about what needs to be treated next or whatever. So I think that then they would make recommendations and we could approve the funds to.
but will they proactively make a recommendation like on an annual basis or something, or will
Oh,
somebody
I
have
think
to,
council's going to have to ask them for it.
somebody will have to
Yeah.
pay? That's what concerns me, is if somebody has to say, oh, hey, what about that natural area? That can get lost again.
Mhm.
So.
So I think that that's our role too then as PPW. We can make suggestions to council, I mean, we won't, but I think that that's part of our job then too, is to keep it from falling off the radar. That's what I would see our role as PPW.
So per your point, should we add it in as a study group? So then we have documentation.
Yeah, there's gotta be something
Or-
that's that's a catalyst to make you look at something, because stuff just, there's so many things to focus on, things get lost.
Well, I think you do have some triggers in that, well, one, updating this plan is going to be done by the council, but the Land Conservancy is still involved in that process and invited to the meetings and is still involved, obviously, going forward, that's still the plan. And then there's the separate layer of the funds at the community foundation. The actual fund agreement states that you have to have an updated master plan to access the funds, and it's the community foundation's responsibility to make sure that the funds that we're requesting are for the purpose that's outlined in that agreement, and that this plan is updated in order to access the funds. So, I mean, that the process essentially worked in the sense that, hey, these funds are there, and obviously we've had some turnover and there wasn't necessarily knowledge that the funds were there, but knowing that the funds are there, the community foundation of this plan, isn't kept up to date, they're not going to give us the dollars just like they aren't right now. So, I mean, that's, to me, at least the mechanism to make sure that things are kept up on.
Yeah, but we lost track of it for 10 years.
Yes,
so.
I agree with you, because I don't want that happening either. So how do we make it more of a permanent fixture? Like we have with, these others that we do updates on? Because, I think it's going to be time consuming to get it right? So we need to get the management plan updated, and then we need to actually have the work done, right? So we need to solidify the trails, we need to put in signage. I mean, so there's certain things, and then after that, a biannual check-in with the Land Conservancy, I think may or may not be appropriate, right? So, but I agree with Nancy in the fact that I would like it in writing somewhere, so there's a place to see that this.
I mean,
needs
I
to be
think it
managed.
is in writing that we've got, I'm sorry. Right. It isn't right. We have an obligation to keep this updated or whatever. I mean, yeah, it fell off the radar and we can talk about how that happened or whatever, but I think that it's no different than any other agreement that we've got that's out there now, right? And now this is, to me, this is front and center. And I mean, I'm excited about it, ready to go. And I just don't see it as happening the same way. I don't think it's gonna fall off the radar for 10 more years and uh, not on my watch anyway. You know, I
But
mean, I
that's
think
the
that it's just
concern.
like anything else.
Is there a clear thing that we say, okay, these are our responsibilities and these are theirs, so we can kind of,
With the Land Conservancy?
yeah.
No.
Well, our responsibility is to keep the contract up to date, the operations.
Right, but what does that contract entail? I mean, do people, are we aware of what that is in a kind of digestible way? Because we, 27 pages is a hard thing to kind of wrap your head around.
Yeah.
So how can we whittle that down to say, okay, this is, so it's understandable, so we know what we're talking about. This is what we need to do, this is what they need to do, and here's our path forward,
Mhm.
how we do that.
Yeah, so.
Because it's hard to go through that whole thing and kind of dissect, okay, we have to do X, Y, Z and to get the money, or is the money that, I looked through it and it's a little.
Yeah, the management plan has to be updated every 5 years.
Right.
So Helen and I went through it probably this spring, because I think I found it in, let's say, December,
Mhm.
and then we called the community foundation, got all the information sent to us in terms of the management plan and, the actual funds and all of that. So we have sort of redlined that original management plan that is from 2010. And then we've created a priorities list. And so this is obviously the most up
Right.
to date. We didn't have this. So this is that next piece that would be added to that. So then, I think probably today we need to say, okay, who with PPW wants to finish updating that, send it on to management and council, right? In terms of, hey, this has been a working document for us. These are the priorities as we know them, since we've done a deeper dive into this. And then there would be, something in writing to move forward with, and then council can decide what the priorities are.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't think it's a hard nut to crack. I don't, yeah, I think our end of the deal is to keep up our end of the bargain on the 5-year plan. I like the fact that we've gotten away from having a board, that it can just be council
Right.
that decides, so that doesn't add another, thing to the mix. I think Ryan's.
And the council could choose to say, hey, we want our Parks and Public Works Committee to, in the future, I mean, the council may also make that decision through, updating the master plan as well. They could choose that, but right now, there's not a, I get that there's a general like Parks and Public Works Committee purview, and maybe this is a natural place that the council wants to have it, but absent this separate board that went away, it's really falling back to the council. So that I guess that's my point, is that there's not a clear direction at this point from the council that this is where we want to park Saugatuck Harbor Natural Area and
Okay.
Yeah, in council, my understanding is council would need to vote on doing away with the ordinance and the board, correct? Like that has to be
there's not an ordinance, but
No.
but
We can
they
just
do need to,
this, and we're not managing to it.
what's that?
Would the ordinance can exist and we're not managing to it, or what needs to happen?
I'm not
there? I
sure
thought
what
that
you-
was like I thought that was our confusion in general, was that there was the management board, and then there was
But the ordinance had nothing in it about a board.
What did have the board in it?
The board was just the management, the letter.
The
Like,
letter
there was a structured, what are we calling this? Not a representation letter.
Well, I mean, it was called the management plan.
So
mean, that's
that
what
was,
it's
so
called,
there was,
yeah.
there's that, and then there's the ordinance. The
Yeah.
ordinance doesn't have anything about the board in it. The management plan had something about the board should look like this.
There were
this, and
7
this.
members. It was,
Right.
Someone appointed from Oxbow, from the city, from the
Right.
township. So from,
That was part of the management plan, but that was not part of the ordinance,
okay.
So that can be changed.
as far as we understand. That's the way we understand it. But yeah, I mean, or council could push back and say like, we'll make the PPW the board, to Ryan's point, if they decide to go that route.
Mhm. Okay, so what do we do to make that happen? I guess like I'm still on where Nancy is that we've talked about it quite a bit, but at this point, do we need to make a motion to say, hey, we kick this to council to make a decision on this?
It's already
Or-
council's decision to make, I think.
Okay, so
Unless
then-
Ryan's gonna tell me something
But if we,
different.
Right, but can't we sometimes make a recommendation to council and then
That's all we can ever do, really.
Right,
Yeah.
obviously. But I just mean as opposed to not making a formal.
That's the answer, Nancy.
Can we make a recommendation? And then I guess. And I really think to me, this makes me think about just bigger picture with all of our parks or whatever, we need to be kind of on top of them on a routine basis, periodic basis or something, of, hey, is that going good? What needs to be done? And so we don't really have, I don't know if PPW just does that, or I mean, yeah.
DPW?
DPW. Or if we should have something where, within our charter or whatever, where we basically review all of our.
So we are an advisory committee and it's really not going to be in our purview, at least not the way that things are currently written in that for us to be, spending funds that aren't approved by council or whatever. So at this point, that's all we really do is make
No, that's not,
recommendations to them.
and that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying to review the status of,
Like a status report.
yeah, just a status report. Oh, PPW, yeah, we looked at this particular park and, we've noted certain things. And then, of course, it goes to council. But not that we would, no, we don't have the power to do anything more than that, but just so we.
Oversight.
Oversight, yeah, that somebody's feeling responsible, so that, because, I mean, if we don't put anything in place.
I think it's a
It could
good
happen
idea,
again.
especially even
Yeah.
like talking to Kelly earlier about, and we need to get back on it about the levels of conservation that we have at different,
Yeah.
parks and beaches and that. And
Right.
so, no, I think that makes sense.
So, yeah, so I guess I just was thinking, I'm trying to remember what's the document that formed our committee, what did it say?
The
we should-
charter.
Yeah, the charter, but maybe we should take a look at that and just see if we wanted to incorporate a few more things into it that we could then recommend to council that we, but maybe we need to have a strategic,
We should have a
Step
strategic
over?
planning session, okay.
For PPW.
Well, that's the whole thing, is it like, does it come back down to another study group and maybe we can.
right, that's. what I'm just
Something
saying,
can
it's like,
fall off and
what's
something
the
can
right
come
way to
on.
handle all these things?
Yeah, I understand. Okay. Well, I think at this point, we are in a good place to get the funds right now, right, from council and from Land Conservancy and to get things rolling. And I don't see it as being a huge priority to create another body or study group for this at this point. I don't want to add that to our list of things to do.
I think it
when-
already is a study group.
Yeah, well, I mean, well,
I've
it's.
spent considerable time. on
Yeah,
it.
I mean,
it's
I'm
combined
talking
with
about like
study
this,
group,
the
right?
different, like, we've got the 6 that are on here now.
Mhm.
And to add another one adds more staff time and all that. So I don't see this as in danger of falling off of anybody's radar right now. I don't know. I don't see it as a huge priority to make it an official thing to have to run down, every meeting or every other or whatever. I don't see it as an issue that way. I think we're gonna get the funds. We take it to council, council makes a recommendation and we get the money and we spend it. And get those invasives or whatever, the priorities are,
Mhm.
wayfinding and trails and whatnot, get that going. But I think that we're in a really good place to do that. And I don't see any reason to add any complexity to it at this point. That's my view.
Okay. But at this point, we need to update, since we now have this management recommendation from Land Conservancy, we need to then update the existing redlined management plan and then send it on. Is that?
I don't
I
know where
understand
we
that
are. on
correctly or
that
no?
part.
Right, I mean, so that's the next step essentially, is to kind of incorporate the Land
Recommendation.
Conservancy's recommendations into the existing master plan and make some red line changes and also change up that language related to the board, and then have council review it in a work session and have some discussion about it. And then if there's any additional changes, they'll be made. And then ultimately the council would approve the
Yeah.
updated plan. So.
Okay, so I mean, what I can do is I have it as a Google Doc, so I can share it with PPW. You guys can take a look too. I mean, there's not significant changes to it. What there are is there were some recommendations about some overlooks, boardwalks, things in that nature. And I know when we looked at it originally, we felt like, and we talked to Scott with DPW, that they're not looking for more to manage, especially with how difficult winters can be out on the lake. That we wanted to keep it more in its natural state. And so that was something that we'd sort of looked at as being irrelevant at this
I
point.
don't think PPW needs to do it. Isn't it a place for staff to take care of it at this point now, or does PPW still need to be looking at it, do you think?
Well, I think that, you know, I guess let's have that discussion. Either I can make the, incorporate the Land Conservancy's recommendations and make some red line changes, or if there's a member of this committee that wants to, give that a crack and send it my way to take a look at. I mean, I'm happy to do it, that direction too.
We
So.
will look at this at this point too.
They looked at the management board piece of it, yeah, what we needed to do. So I think process wise, we have the direction that we need, so. yeah.
Yeah, even like the next thing, because I remember even when you and I were looking at it, it's like, okay, well, clearly we don't have the inventory of invasives and
Sure.
non-invasives.
Yep.
I know we took out the pieces that they decided that like, no, we're not gonna ever be able to build a boardwalk through there. There was like some kind of a recommendation that one of the boards wanted to make or whatever, and they were like, no, this is not part of what we're gonna be able to do there and whatnot. So I feel like we're in a pretty good place where they've got the trails defined, and I just don't, like, why knock ourselves out? So
Yeah.
they've got the trails defined, they've got the invasives defined, they've got the natives defined. At this point, I think it's staff can make the recommendation that, because take our red lines, our proposed red lines that we had.
Okay.
And if there's any questions on it, then come back or whatever. But I think that we're probably in a good place to just cut that
Move
piece
forward.
out and move forward. Yeah.
Okay.
That's my view.
Yeah, sure.
that's-
Yeah, no, I look forward to
Yeah.
moving forward.
Exactly.
I know
Yeah.
I hear
there's
ya.
like a lot
Yep.
of
Yeah.
digging that we had to
So
do to get
why-
to the place
yeah, why
where we are
duplicate that
now. And so I
effort
just
or-
want to
Yep.
make sure that's all tied up in a neat bow so that
think
we
that
can
we're-
feel comfortable with moving
I
it
think we're
forward.
right there. I
Yeah.
do.
That's
We're-
exciting.
We're getting there. I know, the wheel, government turns,
No.
works a little slow.
Yeah, so. Yeah,
I appreciate Kelly's push. I do. I do.
Sales background.
I appreciate that. So I guess,
Working with Kelly, it's the message, the reminder, the message, the reminder, and there'll be like 4 episodes of that.
and just one last piece, I guess, on this, just for your knowledge, so the dollars that, the endowment has, created through its investments, that is actually listed in our accounting, as, in an endowment, line item and deferred revenue. So it is something that we are tracking in our books as well. So I know we've had a lot of changes in institutional knowledge, but, so that's something that, it's being accounted for in our books as well.
In our new treasurer, accountant is comfortable and aware of it.
She will be.
Okay.
So still getting up to speed on a lot of things. So this is something that was, discussing with Plant Moran, but it actually has been tracked for a number of years. So
This wasn't
Um,
exposed.
yep.
Yeah. All right. It's good stuff. We can move on now to review item number D, study group and other staff updates. Invasive species, I know Brian was working on that last month.
If I know, we have two things. I have a list with photographs. Both things that are happening now, invasive species now like Japanese Burberry. I know Nancy has native species and Commissioner or committee member Cherrick is got to put together the Google document of all those. So that's where we are. I have a list. I know you have extensive knowledge. It's meshing them and doing that. I am not technically astute. Where Keith is.
Wasn't Keith gonna work with the principal to see if somebody from the school could help with that?
Well, we have it. I
Oh, you
mean,
have?
yeah,
Okay.
I've gone through
Okay.
many,
You can
many,
take
many,
the
many
pictures, yeah. I don't know what
Future,
it
I
looked
have,
like,
you
yeah.
know, the scientific names, the local names, the pictures. I know Nancy knows native species. It's a matter of getting the
Merging it
Google
all together.
document in. Because I would like to see, actually come spring, when people are actually starting to pay attention, to have that link on our Saugatuck, page.
Mhm.
So people can look at, okay, if you have this, get rid of it,
Mhm.
plant this instead. And so it's easily accessible of both what we should plant,
Great idea.
what to look for, and what to look for in the future.
Also
So-
stop buying the invasive species, right? So they.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh.
That's always my favorite when they're in pots.
Why are they still allowed to sell them
Yeah.
in Michigan when they're on the invasive
Yeah.
barberry? It makes me crazy. Sorry, don't get me going.
About the same house?
No, name names and then it's all fine.
We're selling them in the yard.
Yeah, exactly. All right, that's perfect. Thank you. I appreciate that update. Airport property. I know that we are working with ODC and we've got a red line contract for the conservation easement, and that is supposed to be coming back to council on Wednesdays, I think
Tomorrow.
tomorrow already, oh my gosh, yeah, we have a meeting tomorrow, a workshop to workshop that, and if all goes well, we should be voting on it on Monday.
Great.
That's wonderful.
Amazing.
Do we have any other airport property updates, Ryan, that would be relevant at this point? I don't know.
No, I think the conservation easement is the big one.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, well, that's where we are.
And naming it, naming the airport property. So do we know what the process for that is?
I've talked about it with Ryan and he thinks it's a council.
I think the council has to decide if they want to rename it, if, you know, and provide some direction on what that process looks like.
We don't
So,
have a policy on how to name a park or
Right,
any of that stuff
so-
right now, so.
Well, do we make a motion to bring that to council?
It's already into their purview.
Okay.
It's already the purview,
Okay.
yeah. Yep, so that's where we are on the airport property. Blue Star Multimodal Path. Nancy, any updates for us?
I guess the only update is that, remember we talked one time about how it had to have a tribal review?
Yes.
And we did hear back, actually, you got the communication, I think, from Jared that MDOT had said they did receive some kind of concern
Hmm.
and that they were working to mitigate it. But I don't know anything about it beyond that.
So does MDOT take care of that or is that the city?
MDOT,
Okay.
the way I read the email from Jared was that MDOT was working to mitigate it. We don't get involved, I don't think, or at least that was my understanding.
correct. So, yeah, so MDOT, yeah, notified us exactly as Nancy indicated, and said that they were working themselves on the mitigation. So they haven't told us which drive, what the concern is at this point, or what sort of mitigation they're working out. So,
I have had a couple of our friends, board members ask if we could get any more details, just, I think there are some people who know some people who think that maybe would that help? And I didn't know if there'd be any way that MDOT would actually share anything with us though. So.
yeah, I mean, we can certainly ask. We just want to be, sensitive to the process and letting the.
I know,
folks,
I totally agree.
Yep. I mean, I'm happy to ask if they're willing to share more information or at least get a status update. It's probably been a couple weeks, right?
It's
since
one
we
of those
last heard on that,
situations,
so.
so you don't want to try to make any end runs around,
Yes.
Be
Um,
Respectful and sensitive to
yeah.
that.
And then, the C2AE had their grade inspection meeting with the MDOT folks to kind of discuss the overall engineering plans. Understand Jared's working on updates. I was out of state and it was a holiday for the city, so I wasn't able to attend that meeting, but the things are moving forward. Actually, just yesterday, Jared sent me forms to start applying for the soil and erosion control permits through the Allegan County. So they were at the point where they at least felt comfortable with what MDOT gave them as it relates to moving forward with necessary permitting. So he said he was working on trying to get an update from the grant coordinators on the TAP grant and any possibility of any more funding, and then was going to send a broader update to all of us. So that's the last that I heard yesterday. So.
All right, good to know. Item D4, Village Square and Playground. I know the big update is that we've got pads poured for our benches to be reinstalled. And I don't know if you guys have all seen where they're going. That was in our last packet. Yeah,
It
yeah,
was
yeah.
in the packet, yeah.
Yeah. So 5 benches going in, and obviously we have custody of all those at the DPW garage. So those all get installed and I'm excited for that. Other than that, I don't know that we have any other updates on the playground or Village Square at all, Ryan.
Nope, I know we talked a little while back about, potential donor to, kind of resurface or at least, repaint and, some different court options. The engineers, Scott and I met with the donor's representative and, kind of, talked through that and everybody's expectations and, the courts, like the surfaces themselves, as far as, the concrete and things like that are actually in good shape. Our engineers are indicating, so that's good. There's kind of some expansion that would be recommended as it relates like to the basketball court and just kind of having more space, to meet kind of typical, basketball court regulations. So the engineers were working on putting together a proposal to kind of move that forward, given the amount that the donors are interested in, donating to kind of see what we could get done with those, that amount of dollars. The other piece that we did discuss too is, well, would the donor be interested in kind of, seeing if we could try to leverage those dollars through applying for grants and trying to get, that's obviously a longer process and would take at least a year to go through DNR's grant process. And even then, it's not a guarantee that we actually would be given grant dollars. So I'm not exactly sure that's the direction we're gonna probably end up going, knowing how competitive some of those are. And then there's partial funded as well. So they're not giving you like 100% of the funds. So waiting on that engineering proposal.
Okay.
Yep.
Good. All right, moving along to Park Street, Mount Bald Head and AT&T status. Well, we're gonna roll in that Wi-Fi at the beach too, because that's
Yeah.
excellent.
All right.
It's a
yes.
fabulous update. I'm super excited for that, so.
Yeah, so for Old Beach, Wi-Fi is live and works. I went out there and, put my phone on airplane mode just to make sure I wasn't getting any cell connection and cheating at all. And the Wi-Fi calling, did work. I think there's good signal in those front lots towards the beach. That kind of back lot at Old Beach where there's dunes in the way and that sort of thing. Coverage is more spotty and it makes sense because there's not a clear line of sight to the equipment. But I'm excited to have Wi-Fi out there, especially from a safety perspective. Even if we're going to be, I talked with Scott at working on some kind of signage as folks come in to kind of let them know that Wi-Fi is there to enable Wi-Fi calling. And then we may work on some kind of educational pieces, maybe even on the back of the passes, daily passes that we give out, kind of letting folks know how they could access or at least enable the Wi-Fi calling. I reached out to the sheriff's office and checked. So the Allegan County 911 system also will take texts as well. So if there's an emergency, you can text 911. So that's kind of an additional plus, I guess, if somebody can't necessarily figure out Wi-Fi calling, that there might be an option still through Wi-Fi to message 911. Cell coverage is obviously most ideal, and that's something that we're still working through with at least AT&T on. And they just a couple of weeks ago submitted an updated kind of response to questions that the tribes and the State Historic Preservation Office had. And then I know a lot of the tribes have acknowledged receiving that and are working on getting a response. AT&T is asking for a response within 30 days. I'm not sure if we'll necessarily hit that, but so there's some, recent movement as they've kind of modified their plans a little bit to bring the conduit out of the ground underneath the steps and then putting generating equipment with a slab on grade versus some helical piers to reduce some of the ground disturbance concerns that were raised. So that's moving along. And then Park Street, you're all aware, we received an engineering proposal to kind of do that next step with some surveying of the area to kind of see what kind of issues we would have with installing some sort of combination of trails or widened road, and then looking at additional options and updated costs for a project through there. So we have that engineering proposal. The council did budget for it. We haven't moved along with it yet. I did submit Eagle has a grant that I think might fit well with evaluating this type of a project. So I submitted an interest form that we're interested in applying, and a little bit about the potential engineering phase of it. So a webinar is supposed to be scheduled soon to attend to kind of move towards next steps and maybe applying to at least get some of those get some dollars towards that cost.
Hi. I don't know if you guys have all, I'm sure you all read your packets, but just, Ryan also shares his management report in here too.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of good information there too, especially like on the Ferry Street culvert. I'm sure people ask you about that. gives you detailed information and updates on that. And he didn't go through his management report here. Online, he does it so at the council meetings, but it's super helpful. And to me, and even just as a PPW member to know, people are gonna ask you things like that. What's going on at Ferry Street? When's that gonna be open? I had a contractor come by and they were like, oh, that's still closed or whatever. I'm like, that's gonna be closed until like Memorial Day. Like the hope is for Memorial Day. So I'm like, oh man, don't go down that road, like literally or figuratively, yeah, so. Okay, any questions for the manager on item D5? Okay, that puts us to Maple Street, D6.
Yeah, not a ton of updates. I think we talked last month that we had an open house and got some good feedback from folks. Since then, the fire department kind of, they had actually previously submitted a list of suggestions related to Maple Street. So they kind of brought those back and brought those forth. So I've shared that with our engineers. And so the next step is they're kind of putting together some options and just high level estimates and potential costs so we can get in front of the council and kind of discuss the different options, and then we can have a discussion with the city council on what they ultimately want to pursue and actually do more formal engineering for. So,
Okay. I guess I'm just thinking about the PPW tie-in to, you know, these kind of projects or whatever. I think that to me, it would be on the non-motorized improvements, you know, how we're gonna do walking and that. I do like the idea. I mean, I know that council is gonna be deciding this obviously, and it's a decision to be made for mine, but I do think that we should discuss, is it appropriate for, you know, PPW to come? Does it make a difference if we come with a recommendation to be putting in a, you know, sidewalk or whatever? I don't know. I'd be curious to know your opinion of that. Does it matter? Do we?
yeah, I think, you know, PPW certainly could have a place in that. Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm sure from you know, because we're looking at sidewalk, pathway, widened shoulders. I mean, all of those are things that are going to be kind of options that we're looking at. And obviously, you know, at the end of the day, some of it's going to be driven by cost, but some of it also has other, you know, impacts, you know, to the corridor as far as trees and things like that. So.
Just as a community, I mean, I think that anything that we do to make our city more walkable, bikeable, accessible, without having to get in your car is something that I think that most of us would support. Obviously, that's balanced with, you know, you're gonna take out some trees if you put in a sidewalk, or, you know, how far over do we want to go or whatever, but it could be just something to kind of keep your eyes open and as you go down Maple Street and that, and think about what it looks like. And I would definitely be in favor of taking something formally to council to say like, hey, you know, as a group, we thought it was necessary that we weighed in on this, and we just want to make a formal recommendation that we have whatever,
Mhm.
bike, walking path,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So
I totally,
on that?
totally support what you just said.
Okay.
I think to take it a step further, so when we did the 5-year parks plan last
Mhm.
year, right? The number one thing, as you read that, is connectivity
Yeah.
of our downtowns, our schools, our parks, our trails, all of that. So, and that was, you know, the 3 municipalities plus the school that work together. And that's literally the mission statement is connectivity. That was the number one thing. And that's why we all got together to talk about wayfinding so
Yeah.
that there was less confusion for tourists when they're coming in, but also for locals to have access to it. Because if you look at the survey, the number one thing why people aren't using the green spaces is they don't know they exist, or they don't know how to, right? They don't know where they
Or they
are.
know that like to get to it, it's not connected. So you're gonna have a 1 mile jaunt on something that's not
Yeah, there's confusion
accessible
surrounding it.
for you, you know, and especially Maple Street, there's those apartments in there. There's a lot of kids. We are not a huge community with a lot of kids, but there are a lot of kids on Maple
Mhm.
Street. And
Yeah.
I think we owe them better than how we've got it now. That's my view on that. But okay, so start noodling on that. Obviously, we're ways out on Maple Street, but I think it'd be nice to take a formal recommendation to council.
Okay.
That's my view on that.
And besides cost, Brian, will we get, or will there be, what kind of materials or whatever will they be presenting, you know, as far as like the advantages of the separated path versus, you know, like the wide shoulder? I mean, to me, it's a no-brainer, but, you know, is there, what would they look at? You know, besides how much it's gonna cost? You did mention trees coming out. Are there other things that to consider? You know? You know what I mean? I'm like, okay, how do we weigh like, well, the advantages of the separated trail or sidewalk, whatever you want to call it, versus like, say, the widened shoulder. Well, to me, obviously, there's a safety concern with the widened shoulder. There's maybe there's a tree concern if you do the separated one. How do you, would the engineers be coming to us with some actual, facts or something, or do we just
Would
kind
they
of?
do something like they did with just the curve into the city? Here's a plan here. This is what this would look like. This is what this would look like. This is what this would look like. What do you like? Or
And this is
Well,
what-
right,
how do
but
we
then you
mix
kind of
the
need to
three?
know the pros and cons,
Well, it'll
of
be money.
Big
It'll be,
money.
yes,
money is
sidewalks are
money's gonna be
crazy
the key.
expensive.
Money's
yeah.
gonna be the key,
course,
I think.
And that's a weird street, as you know, I mean, because there's not, there's not a lot of room for a lot of stuff. So I think they're limited in what
And on the
can
north
actually
side,
be done.
and on the north side is the township.
Right.
Right. So, I mean, I think that there's those considerations too, that they'd have to present us with things. And
Yeah,
the
so
people
I
who live
guess-
on the street, they have some say too.
Yeah, like if you have a
Obviously.
sidewalk, is there an assessment?
Yeah.
Meaning the city of Saugatuck can't assess sidewalks to the township residents. Like there's definitely a lot that's involved, for
Mhm.
sure. And that's part of what we got.
Yeah, I guess that's all I'm asking.
Same
It's
thing
just
with
kind of
Park
what kind of
Street.
material would they
Yeah,
present?
absolutely.
Yeah, I
Right.
mean,
Well,
Park Street's trickier.
Well, Park Street's a little trickier, but Park Street at least is fully within our boundaries. Like if because the north side of the street is where it
Right,
makes sense
yeah.
to have the walking, right? But that's the township, but
Right.
what we're responsible fully for the road and that. So it's just,
Mhm,
it's gonna be
yeah.
a little bit dicier working with just with another municipality on that, I think.
Yeah, so just so yeah, great question. And so here's the scope of services that the current engineering agreement covers. So obviously meeting with, I'm summarizing various stakeholders to review project elements, schedule and other relevant items. The topographic survey, which is complete, and we reviewed some of that with the folks that attended the open house. So we're reviewing the findings from the project that we have going on right now with water service materials, reviewing options presented previously for stormwater management, evaluate routing for water main looping, preparing conceptual routing plan for sidewalk, considering location on either side of the street, identify approximate tree removal, right-of-way encroachments, and other conflicts to be addressed during design. Revisit some of the SAW information. So that was related to sanitary sewer and whether or not we need to do any work there. Assist the city with developing final project scope and incorporating the elements that we just discussed, and then summarize final project scope for communication and future reference, prepare budgetary cost estimates for the project. Right now, the next step is we're working on some conversations with the township, and then assemble the final deliverable survey report, cost estimate and conceptual layouts for use in formal design. So,
Okay.
so I think we'll cover the things that you were, kind of looking for. So we have a comprehensive set of information to kind of make some informed decisions.
Yeah.
And what's the timeline again, Ryan?
We're hoping this fall still to get in front of the council. So at this point, I don't know, maybe the second meeting in November, but most likely probably December at this point. So
But for what decision, what part of the decision?
this report that
Okay, so that you're expecting the report would be finished with renderings and budget items and then,
this fall is
Council.
that they're what we're hoping for.
Okay.
Yeah. So if not, then certainly the first quarter of next year.
Good,
thank you.
all right. At this point, we'll move on to the second public comment session. We still have no one in the audience. We have one person online. Hi, Ashley. Any
Yeah.
public comments from you? No, you're good. Thanks for joining. Thank you for the check too. We were loving our Wi-Fi at the beach. Correspondence, I don't think we have any. No. We can go to member closing comments. We'll start with you, Nancy, if you wouldn't mind, and make our way around the table.
Nothing in particular, just, happy about all the things we're working on and really looking forward to working with you, Brian, on getting this thing pulled together. I'm going to be on kind of an extended trip leaving tomorrow. So,
Oh, good for you.
yeah, so I won't be back till mid-November, but then let's maybe.
I'm sure
see
we
if
can corral Mr. Chair by then.
Yeah, so maybe we can look forward to getting together with you on that. That'll be great.
Safe travels.
Thank you.
Okay, so I want to thank DPW. And then, Ryan, thank you for including your management report in the packet. That's super, super helpful. So I really appreciate that. The Facebook posts from the city have been fantastic lately, so I want to make mention of that. And I think maybe for those of you working on the invasive species, that could be a cool way to incorporate that. Information is to push that out. That could be interesting. I think also with Facebook is that people miss things, so don't be afraid to repeat so that people see it again, because you're putting the time in to create the infographics and things, and I think that's super important and super helpful for people to be able to see repeated multiple times. And then also the historical references are awesome. So I appreciate that you're doing that. I know that takes time and it's very fun. And then I want to say thanks to everyone for all of our hard work, but especially to Helen, who has worked tirelessly to get so much of this across the finish line. So I appreciate you for that. And I do, we're 2 years and a couple months into this, if we were here from the start. So I just want to go over all that's been accomplished in that time is that we have this incredible playground that we've seen more people and kids have really great core memories being made here in Saugatuck at. We have the airport property that's fully endowed. And I'm calling it the airport park now. It's a park that's fully endowed, and hopefully we'll have a conservation easement very soon. We have Saugatuck Harbor Natural Area that's very close to the finish line where we can get that management plan back into good graces and that we can move forward with that project. We have the Mount Baldhead improvements that are with council. We have an increased budget for the parks through what happened with Oval Beach, and that was very much one of Helen's initiatives. Wi-Fi Oval, which is awesome. The 5-year parks plan, I forgot that we even did all of that, which was so time intensive. And you just go like this, you go, but all the writing and everything, that it's 100 and some page document. And that has been done under our tutelage, and then all the Blue Star Trail intersection and design decisions. So it's been a lot, and it's really positive stuff that's gone around, and we can physically see it and we can see people enjoying it. So thank you all.
2 years has been, it's gone by fast. Brian?
Oh, me. Want to thank Helen. Hopefully we can keep this going for a few more years.
You guys are just now reminding me this is gonna be my last meeting.
Well, Helen.
I didn't put all that together before I showed
And
Manifested.
I love being on the committee, so that's about it. Great meeting. And thank you, Ryan. I mean, you come in here with everything, every week, completely prepared.
Always.
I am in a lot. I haven't been able to do that.
He is
I can figure it
prepared
out,
for
but-
sure.
So thank you.
I opened the packet and read it last night. I'm like, gee, like there really is a lot that goes into this. So very much appreciate that, and hearing everything everybody has done, which is very impressive. And, I know I'm relatively new and I haven't been involved in most of these projects, but I am eager to help. So anybody who needs anything, feel free to reach out if you want me to get involved and do something.
Careful.
But I am looking forward to next year as well, and kind of getting into and understanding this whole master plan and what that has to do with our committee and our agenda for the year coming up, as we believe Helen will be reelected and we'll get to move forward in the same way.
Kelly, can you do me a favor, and could you, you just read off a list of things that we have accomplished. Can you do a text or email to us with that rundown? Just,
Maybe.
Easy
Will be in
peasy,
the
one, two,
minute.
three, four,
It'll
five.
be in the minute.
Yeah.
There, we'll take care of that.
Oh, yeah, duh.
I want to say thank you. I do want to say thank you
There's
to
that
member,
too.
to member Roach for putting that list together. It's really helpful. And in 2 years it definitely goes by fast. Again, I hadn't really put it all together. This has been my last meeting. I hope it's not. If it is, it's been wonderful working with all of you. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
And one
please.
more thing, and I think we need to thank Sarah too, who is always here and gets everything
Of
prepared.
course.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah.
Goes unsung.
The staff has been crushing it for sure.
We're crushing it.
For sure.
I will make a motion to close the meeting.
I'll second it.
All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Motion, meeting adjourned.
Get that gavel.
Yeah.
Yeah, y'all made me